Alrighty boots, alrighty trainees, cookies, welcome back. This is part 3, welcome to the Lspd. Okay, I'm Sergeant Clifton. Today, you are going to be getting a run through of the MDT. That is going to be the tablet that you're going to perform a lot of your actions on. It's going to be your incident reports, your shift reports, if you do those. It's going to be on here, this little tablet. For me at least, I just flex my F5 muscle when I am not in a vehicle. And that pulls that up. But for you may have to change that bind. The regular way is, I believe, for any new people in the city, it's going to be your F1 muscle. You pull that up, you should see these 3 options here. You're going to see work, general, and ID cards. You're going to hit work. Before that, and if you don't see work, I'll show you why. I'll tell you why. You're going to flex your J muscle. You should see at this 3 lines and the checks and the dots here, you should see whitelist jobs, and you should see law enforcement. If you don't see this, then that means you need to be hired by somebody. If you do see this, that's good. It just means you need to unselect and then reselect. And then now that says selected and off duty, that just means that you hit that to go off duty, but if you see off duty, that means you're actually on duty. Now, other than that, we're going to X out of that. You're going to hit your F1 muscle or whatever muscle it is to bring up these 3 options. You're going to go to work. You're going to see multiple options here. We're going to go to this one here. It's going to be the rectangular shape. It's going to be the open MDT. Then you're going to see this blank page here. This is just your lock screen. And hit this bottom line right there. If you've never used a tablet before, you can hit that bottom line right there. Then you should see this screen here. If you are not on duty, you won't see this police icon here. However, if you are on duty, you will see it up here in the top right. You're going to hit the police one. It's going to bring you to the home page. As you see that in the top left, on the left side category, you are in the home page. On the first selection here, you see recent reports. That is where any of the most recent cases, case reports, incident reports, whatever you call them, they are going to show up here. Alright, sorry about that. Back to the home page. When you open this home page, you should see recent reports. That is where any of the most recent cases and reports and incident reports, that's where they're going to be. You'll see them there. See, we got a few here. Moving on down just below that, you should see recent warrants. Same thing here. Any of the most recent warrants that have been filed, they're going to pop up here. To the right here, you see bulletin board. These are the important announcements and notes that you want to be seeing as a new person into the force, or even if you're not new. These may be new things that are being introduced. If they are, you'll probably see them here. As you see, we have max sentence and fine is listed here. We have speed limit, classes of weapons, and the SOPs. Now on the right side here, this is the active units. These are all the units that are currently on duty. Now you see that they all have their call signs, their proper call signs. Make sure whenever you are promoted or you get a new call sign in the top right here, this is your profile. You see above my name, I have my call sign there. Whenever you get a new call sign or whatever it may be, you're going to want to click on the call sign there, and you're going to change your call sign. Then you're going to save that, and then it'll be updated. Moving on. The bulletin board selection just below home, it's pretty much the same thing I was just showing you here on the home selection. Just gives you a bigger screen, really. That's about it. Dispatch may seem useless, but it is pretty important for, it could be useful for vehicle carjackings. Say you get the notification in the top right of your eyes, but you miss the plate. You can come back into dispatch here. If you click this arrow on the right side of the screen, you'll see the alarms and calls that come in on the bottom right there. As you see, we have a vehicle theft, and it shows the plate right on the right side there. So if you miss the plate, just come to dispatch, and you can verify the plate. Moving on. Going down to units on the left side. Units is actually useless, so we'll move on from that. Moving on to profile. This is pretty important. So if you're running a 1027 or a license check or ID check, whatever you may call it, You're verifying somebody's name for a gun license, whatever it may be. Traffic stop. If you get someone's name and you need to verify it, you're going to put their name into here. So we'll do Albert Max. Now I've typed in Albert Max and he shows up right here. You're going to look at their profile. It's going to show you their phone number, gender, occupation, fingerprint. If they have active warrants, that is important. What vehicles they own. If they have a warrant, it'll show up here. Properties, that is not working at the moment, so we're not going to worry about that. Weapons, we also don't use that, so don't worry about it. So this is reports and cases. That has to do with PD. So if someone is in PD, it'll have their cases and stuff like that, but don't worry about that. Now, licenses. That's going to show you what licenses they have. If they have a car license, a weapon license, hunting license, things like that. Charges. If you are running a 1027 for someone on the radio, they say, can I get a 1027 on a Albert Max? And you provide them the name of that person, whatever charges they have. This is important because you want to list for that person who may be on a 1011, a traffic stop. If this person that they are asking for an ID check has attempted murder on an LEO, that is important information to provide because we know that that person is dangerous. Other than that, that's pretty much it. You can add notes here. Sometimes you'll see people have notes like if they've been fined for speeding or warned for speeding before. But yeah, that's pretty much it for profiles. Moving on, we got vehicles. This is pretty much the same thing for profiles, except it's just vehicles, and you're going to search vehicles by their plate. So we'll use this vehicle right here. It's owned by Uday Ross, and if you see, the first four of the plate is JZXP. That's all you need to look up a vehicle is the first four. So I'll put those 4 letters in the search right here. And then it brings up that same vehicle. All right, now that we found that vehicle, you can see who it's owned by, what the color is, the model, and if it has any active warrants. We don't really call them warrants. They'd be really called a BOLO, a be on the lookout. You could also see if they have any cases attached to it or any notes attached to it. That's pretty much it for vehicles. Moving on, properties is useless, so we don't use that. Weapons is not being used any longer. Reports. So this is where you're going to make a report on, say, a shift report. If you want to make a report on what happened in your current shift before you go 1042, which is out of service for the night. You're going to make a shift report to detail what you did, how many cases you made, and what case numbers they are. That's pretty much it for reports. Moving on, get cases here. So cases, that's where you're going to make the case reports for a incident that happened. Maybe it's a attempted murder or something like that. As you see here, we have a reckless evading that was filed by Jonas Hopkins on December the 12th, 2025. So we can select that, and I'll show you what the case report looks like. As you can see, the first thing here is evidence. If you have any evidence off of a person that was, you seized evidence from them, whether it be a gun or whatnot, you're going to open the stash and you're going to put that evidence in here. As you can see, there was a battle axe, 4 lockpicks, and looks like some ammunition for a pistol. Now, going back, you can see tags. Under tags is where you would put guilty, not guilty, no contest. That's how the suspect pled to their charges. Weapons involved is not used. Linked reports, that could be used, although it's not used very often, so we won't mention that for now. Vehicles involved. If there is a vehicle involved that is owned by somebody, it's not a gang vehicle or a local vehicle, you could list that here if you have the plate. Civilians involved. If there's a civilian involved in the incident, a victim, for example, you're going to list their name here. And then officers involved. Any officers that were involved in the case are going to be listed here. So as you see, we have just Jonas Hopkins for that one. Moving on to the description. That is probably the more important part. You're going to have date opened, so when that was opened, filed by, who it was filed by, which officer. And then incident details, that is what happened, pretty much, in the case. So you'll list things like just what happened, how it started. Pretty important things at the end are you read them their rights. If they were injured, you treated them, you got them medical attention, you transported them to the department, and they pled guilty or not guilty or no contest to the charges. As you can see here, they got the time listed and the fine listed, the plea. And there's actually two suspects in this case, so they listed both of them. Now, as you can see, if I hit edit here, that is how you're going to edit your case. So you're going to do that first. So if I wanted to edit this case, say there was a third person involved, I could add the criminal here. That would add a person, and it's going to pull up this search here. That is where you're going to search the suspect's name to add them to the case. So for this, I'll search Albert Max. I'll hit him, and now he is added to this case, and we can add his charges to whatever he is being charged with. All right, moving on from that, if you have somebody that you're charging, their fine and their sentence is going to be automatically added based on what charges you add. So we'll add something like abuse of public office. That sounds good. So as you can see, abuse of public office comes with a $50,000 recommended fine and a 30-month sentence. You can do that individually if you want to send them the fine. You do that first. You sentence them to their recommended sentence. You can also edit the amount of time and money it is. So I could set this to 10 months, whatever. I could set the fine to $15. So I could fine him. I would do that by hitting this or hitting this, the jail player or the send. This area, the sending fine and sending to jail, that will be done more over and shown you in more detail by your FTO, the person taking you for a 1012. So I'm not going to go over that in huge detail. Moving on from that, you also, if you want to put the title, it's kind of tricky and it's not really shown very clearly. Once you're in the editing mode, you want to come to the top here. It's going to say new case if you haven't changed it already. And you'll just double click that top header. And that's where you'll change it to whatever the title should be. And usually it'll be the most malicious charge that the person is going to be getting hit with. And then a little divider or a dash, however you want to separate it. Your name, the arresting officer's name, or the name of the officer who is filing the case actually. And then the date that the case was being opened. And that's pretty much about it for cases. All right, moving on from cases, we're going to move on to the warrants section. Now, this is where you're going to file a warrant for a person. If they say they escaped from you, but you were able to get their ID, say if you were on a traffic stop, a 1011, and you got their fingerprint, so you got their name and everything like that, and then they decided to flee from you. If you have their name and you're going to set out a warrant for them, they're going to come to the warrants tab. You're going to hit new. You have target. Target is either you're going to be setting a warrant on a person or a vehicle. So if you weren't setting it on a person, you could also set it on a vehicle. Say if you were on a traffic stop and you got the plate, but you didn't get the person's name. But I'll just show you how to set it on a person for this example. So we're going to go ahead and hit select person. We're going to search the person's name. We'll do Albert Mack. There they are. Hit their name. And then it's going to be type. So we'll say arrest warrant, search warrant, bench warrant, extradition warrant, or probation violation warrant. You're 99% of the time going to be using arrest warrant, pretty much. Status. This is important. Active, canceled, or expired. We'll leave this as active, as it will be an active warrant until it has been served. Priority. This is based on how urgent you believe this is related to. So if it's high priority, say they shot at you and got away and they're dangerous, that would be a high priority. Medium priority, say they were recklessly evading, putting people in danger, but they weren't using, say, weapons or something like that. Low priority, basically they fled, and that's about all you have. Usually you're only going to be using medium and high. Low priority is not very used. Moving on from that, if you have any pictures of the suspect, you can provide them here. Any pictures of the suspect, or if it was a vehicle, you put pictures of the vehicle. Tags, you can add tags such as forensics, SWAT. That would be only for specific cases if you're involved with those divisions. The description, it's kind of like a case report. You're going to put the number for the warrant, so the number provided with that. You're going to put the date that you made this, the officer that it was issued by, so yourself, your badge number. The reason, so that's basically you're going to be, the reason is basically you're interested in details. What happened, what led up to it, and why you're filing this. The location and target, that is going to be who you're after and where they basically are. If they're in the city, if that's where it happened. Execution details, that is more for SWAT, things like that. If you are executing a warrant that is to be served out in a, say, a sting op or something like that. Additional notes, if you have anything else you would like to provide, you'd put them under that. Linked reports, that is where you're going to link a report that had to go with this warrant, anything that had to do with it. So you would add that report here, click add and do that. That is about it for warrants. We'll go ahead and move on to offenses. Make sure I actually cancel that warrant. I don't actually put a warrant on you. All right, moving on to offenses. This is where you're going to see if you want to check out what offenses there are, what you could charge somebody with. This is where you can see the offense, the time, the fine related to it, if it's a felony, a misdemeanor, things like that. If it's an infraction, infractions are more like if you're charging someone with speeding or something like that. Moving on from offenses, you're going to go to employees, not really used. Won't bother with that. The last thing that's really used and important, somewhat important, is the chat. If you join the Lspd chat, you can obviously talk to people here. You can ask questions if there's no one you can directly talk to or something like that. You can just ask things, talk to people here, and that's really about it for that. The phone section is not usable, and the jail section is not to be used. But that is about it for the MDT. If you have any questions, I'm sure you will have questions. Please ask your instructor. They should be more than happy to provide your answers to those questions. Thank you very much.